Hey everyone, Andrew here, bringing you another video. And right now we are going to be doing part 2 to my video game collection. What I realized at the end of part 1 when I was loading it up is I spent 17 minutes talking about the SNES, the N64, and the Game Boy. That's a lot of time on the smallest part of my collection, so I'm probably going to have to break this up into multiple parts. Not necessarily for me. I can flex my muscles as a partner and put it all down in one video, but for you guys, it'd probably be easier to break it up into parts because then you can watch a part, leave, go do something, maybe play a video game, and then come back. So with that said, we're going to break this up. I have GameCube, Xbox, Xbox 360, and Wii left to do. And I'm going to do the GameCube right now, which is probably the biggest part of my collection because, well, I just love the GameCube. It had so many good games on it. It really did. So with that said, just jump into it. We'll play this as we go. We'll see how much time it's taken. So we'll start off with the great stuff. And probably the best thing to ever be released on the GameCube would be the Legend of Zelda Collector's Edition. Now this, right here, people, has 4 games on it. The Legend of Zelda, the Legend of Zelda Adventure of Link, the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, and the Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. Fantastic. 4 full-fledged Zelda games. All the games on this that I played, 100% complete. Even Ocarina of Time with that glitch with the Deku nuts where you have to get all the upgrades before you become an adult. I have everything in all the games. Great. I love all the games. I mean, I'm not going to go into Ocarina of Time on this for a reason you'll see in a sec, but Legend of Zelda, fun game, classic game, you know, revolutionized gaming at the time. Adventure of Link, probably my least favorite Zelda game, but it's really kind of just the black sheep of the Zelda family. If it had better save points and you could keep your experience after you died, it would have been better. And then Majora's Mask, fantastic game. One of my favorite Zelda games of all time. So underrated, so good. Moving on. The reason why I didn't talk about Ocarina of Time, which would be because Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time and the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time Master Quest. This was released, it has the original Ocarina of Time game, which all you guys know is my favorite Zelda game and my favorite game of all time. Perfect game for me. And then you have the Master Quest, which switches up the levels, which is a nice change of pace. Because if there's any fault to Ocarina of Time, is that it's a really challenging game the first time you go through it, and then the second time it's really easy because you know where everything is. But the Master Quest switched it up and put the difficulty level up high. It was fun. It was really good. I mean, I breezed through the Master Quest, but at least with something different. So, Ocarina of Time, without a doubt, the best game of all time. My favorite game of all time. And I'm glad I have these two. These are like the shining gems in my collection. Next is Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, and as you can see, we're doing all the Zelda stuff right now for the GameCube. Wind Waker, at the time, when I first got this game, I was concerned because obviously the graphics, I think that's concerned everyone, but I've come to adore the graphics. I've come to adore everything about this game. The only thing I can complain about this game is the monotonous sailing to get the Triforce pieces. Other than that, this game is great. Great gameplay, great story, great graphics. I mean, Link interacts with his environment and the facial features. He's just so adorable. How can you not love it? Wind Waker, fantastic game. I really recommend it to anyone who's a hardcore gamer. It's hard not to like it. Really is a very underrated Zelda game. Legend of Zelda 4 Swords Adventure. This is a fun game. I enjoyed this. I played it as a single player, so I probably didn't enjoy it as much as I could. But the requirements to play this as 2-player or 4-player is that you need to have the Game Boy Advance with the cartridge, and you also need to be able to hook it up to the thing. It's ridiculous. But on the whole, it was a fun game, and it held me over for the later Zelda games. Ooh, let's fix that. And then last for the Zeldas would be Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. I got it on the GameCube rather than the Wii, mainly because when Zelda Twilight Princess came out, I didn't have a Wii. You know, looking back on it, I enjoy this game more than I did when I played it. I still think it's nothing special in the Zelda franchise for multiple reasons. One, is, I mean, it really doesn't do anything different. It feels like Ocarina of Time, the sequel, not quite as good. Even stays the same formula with the dungeons and stuff like that. Very easy, very, very easiest Zelda game I've ever played. In addition to that, most of the items you don't use outside the dungeon. You get an item, you use it in the dungeon, then you'll never use it again. I mean, seriously, how many times did we use the spinning top? 3 times outside a dungeon. Where, if you look at Ocarina of Time, or Wind Waker, you use the items everywhere. But on a whole, it was a good game, it was an enjoyable game. I'm probably going to replay it sometime soon. So those are the Zelda. Let's put those down there. My favorite video game series, and now we are moving on to my second favorite video game series, which would be Resident Evil. And we'll start off with Resident Evil 0. The most underrated Resident Evil game. Resident Evil 0 was a really, really fun game. I really like the two-person aspect where you can play as both characters at once. Rebecca is just the most adorable little character in the world. She's in this world of zombies, and she's the most innocent little thing in the world. Yeah, Resident Evil 0, very good game. The only complaint I had with it is the boss. The boss was kind of cheesy and stupid with the leeches. And it looks so much like Resident Evil 1 with the mansion. They could have at least made the training facilities look more like training facilities. But on the whole, great game. Enjoyed it. Definitely the most underrated out of the Resident Evil series. Resident Evil, the remake for the GameCube. I really like this also. You're going to find with a lot of my games, I like them because I don't buy games I don't like. Updated graphics. Definitely had the best horror aspect out of all the Resident Evil games. You really get a sense of like being alone with nothing. I mean, you have very little ammo. You have very little resources. You have to fend for yourself with all these zombies. Great feeling. Great atmosphere. Gameplay-wise, not quite as good as the other ones, but still, the remake was really good. And hey, look! Chris isn't ridiculously jacked on steroids. Awesome! So yeah, put that down there. Next would be Resident Evil 2. One of my favorite Resident Evil games. Mainly for nostalgic factor, but it was a fun game too, and it had a good challenge to it. The cast of characters were better than Resident Evil 1. Jill and Chris just seemed so bland. Like even now in Resident Evil 5, they seem to have the personalities of, I don't know, mouth aids. I mean, really, they have no personality right now. They're dull. But Claire and Leon, they're great characters. You can really start to like them. Resident Evil 2, definitely one of the best of the Resident Evil games. Resident Evil 3. Good game. My main complaint with it is it's just really easy of a game. Out of all the cinematic view Resident Evil games, this is probably the easiest. The one that you go through quickest. But it is still fun. I like the ammo manipulation where you can create the ammo mixture thing. Jill coming back, you know, she was a little bit better in this game, but not much better. And I like the fact that it kind of ties in with Resident Evil 2. It's a good game. Resident Evil Code Veronica X. The funny thing is in comparison to Resident Evil 3, Resident Evil 3 had good gameplay, but a sucky story, kind of. I mean, it's nice that it tied into Resident Evil 2, but the story wasn't really impressive. This had a fantastic story, but really sucky gameplay. They really tried to screw you so much during this game. So much. I'll give you an example. There's one point in the very beginning of the game you get a fire extinguisher. You use it for something, I forget what, obviously to put out a fire. Yeah, you use it for something. Oh yeah, to water the garden. No, you use it to put out a fire at some point. Then you put it away thinking that you're never going to use it again. But the only way to get the Magnum is to have a fire extinguisher. Luckily I had the blowgun, and the blowgun with the fire grenades on them, or the fire ammo, did the trick for me at the last boss. But this really screwed the pooch on you. And this is but story-wise, this is really good, really fun story. I liked all the characters. And this is probably the only game that I really liked Chris in. But this was a really, really good game, story-wise. And the Return of Wesker. And the best out of the Resident Evil games thus far, and my favorite Resident Evil game, and one of my favorite video games of all time, Resident Evil 4. What I call the Ocarina of Time of Resident Evil games. All the Resident Evil games up to this point are not as good as this game, and every Resident Evil game since have been trying to succeed where this has succeeded. Great game. Leon S. Kennedy comes back, secret agent, fucking badass. Love Leon. He is awesome in this game. Great game, great gameplay. A lot of people complain the fact that you couldn't run or walk while you're aiming, but it's a survival horror game, so I let it slide because, I mean, it kind of makes you actually have to try harder. Great game, really good game. Oh, one of my favorite games of all time. So, put that down. Those are the Resident Evil. We're moving on. We are going to be doing, let me just rip this down. Prince of Persia, Sands of Time. I have the whole trilogy, which I will go through. Prince of Persia, Sands of Time is probably my second favorite out of the trilogy. A good story, good platform, and the only complaint I had with it was the combat, but still, good game. Prince of Persia Warrior Within is probably my least favorite of the series, which is funny because it probably had the best combat. The platforming wasn't bad. My problem with this game was just there was a lot of backtracking. It could get confusing. And there was a lot to get the true ending. And surprisingly, a lot of people may not agree with this. My favorite was Prince of Persia: The Two Thrones. Really brought everything, I thought, brought everything together from the previous two games. I like the fact they brought back some old characters. Satisfying ending. It really worked for the series. I enjoyed The Two Thrones the most. The Prince of Persia is one of my favorite video game series also. Probably my third favorite, or fourth. With Zelda being my favorite, Resident Evil being my second favorite. This would fall somewhere with the Sonic games as, or the Mario games as my next favorite. Good game series. Good game series. What am I doing? Boom, boom, boom. Next is, another great thing to have for anyone would be the Sonic Mega Collection. This has Sonic 1, 2, 3, Sonic & Knuckles, 3D Blast, Sonic Spinballs, and Dr. Robotnik. No one cares a shit about that game. So as you can see, it comes with a shitload of games. Sonic games are classic. I mean, Sonic 1 through 3 plus Sonic & Knuckles are arguably the best of the series for most gamers. For me, I do have a few favorites outside the series, but I mean, this is just something that you should have if you want to play Sonic. It's necessary. Good game series, good series of games. Sonic has always been one of my favorite game series, which has really hurt me because the most recent games have sucked major monkey balls. Like literally every time you pop in one of the new Zelda Sonic games, like Sonic Unleashed or the one with the swords or the sand one or the one on the 360, every time you pop it in, some monkey comes out of a vortex from an alternate dimension, whips out a big, huge, sweaty, salty balls and whacks it in your face because that's how bad the Sonic games have gotten recently. But they were still good at sometimes. Sonic Gem Collection, this kind of picks up where the Sonic Mega Collection left off. You get Sonic CD, Sonic Fighter. You get a lot of miscellaneous games. Some of them were from the Dreamcast. There's also some other ones. Let's see, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Sonic Spinball, Sonic Triple Trouble, Sonic Draft 2, Tails, Sky Patrol, and Tails Adventure. They have a few other stuff on there. Not quite as good as the Mega Collection, but it kind of fills in all the miscellaneous Sonic games that you don't get. Really, the reason to get this would be Sonic CD, which is a ridiculously easy game, but it's good. It's nice to have. One of my favorite games and one of my favorite Sonic games would be Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. Great story, great gameplay. This is what a Sonic game should be on a 3D platform. Enough said. Awesome. Which brings me to Sonic Heroes. Good. I would say that it adds a little bit more to the... It's not quite as good as the story as this game. You know, Metal Sonic go around, copying everyone's DNA to become the super badass. But I do like the fact that it had teams in this. This was a fun game. Good speed. Good levels. I like the boss at the end too, the Metal Sonic, the ultimate one. It reminded me a lot of Cell from Dragon Ball Z. The battle in the air was fantastic. What else? There's something else I wanted to say. I completely forgot. But this game, the only problem with this game is getting all the Chaos Emeralds is a bitch. Absolute bitch. But it's still a good game. And the last Sonic game I have, and the last Sonic game I played before I stopped, was Shadow the Hedgehog. Let's face it, we didn't get this game for the gameplay. We got it for the story. But the gameplay was okay. I mean, the guns aren't necessary at all. they could have removed the guns and focused more on other stuff. But putting that aside, I still enjoyed this game. It's still probably one of my favorite in the Sonic series, but more or less for the story than the gameplay. I'm not gonna lie, the gameplay is weaker than the previous two titles, but it's still a fun game. And Sonic, Shadow the Hedgehog is with Knuckles as one of my favorite Sonic characters. He's tied with Knuckles as my favorite. So the Sonic series, this is really, if you want to get Sonic, these are the games that you want to get. Sonic 4 is coming out. I think it's going to be downloadable content on the Xbox, which is silly. They should make it a actual game. So, let's take some of the miscellaneous stuff here. Super Smash Bros. Melee. Best of the Super Smash Bros. Series, in my opinion. Really fun game. My characters are Samus, Link, and Captain Falcon, who I call Captain Nip because he had golden nipple rings. And show me a nip! A lot of people say, well, Link is a mid-tier character. Why would you use him? Trust me, I use him. There's only been like 1 or 2 people that have ever been able to beat me. So, Link's the man. In Zelda and any other games, he's the man. Melee, definitely the best out of the Super Smash Bros. Series. And my favorite. Batman Begins. This is one of the games I picked up recently for very cheap. I got it for like $6. Surprisingly an okay game. I mean, it's hard to really judge a Batman game without comparing it to Arkham Asylum. But not comparing it to Arkham Asylum, it was an okay game. Kind of short. One person said it like you could beat this in 3 hours. I wouldn't say that. It takes longer, but and it does deter different from the movie, but it's fun. It's a little, it's enjoyable. Definitely not the first Batman game I would pick up, but I mean for $6 you really can't go wrong. And that's really the price you would pay. $6. So Batman Begins, pretty good game. But definitely is on the lower tier of games I've had. Batman Vengeance. My main problem with Batman Vengeance is the combat. The combat is just so many assholes in this game. So many assholes. Like, it's like you take all the assholes from all the other games in all gaming history, you put it in this game, because the enemies can be dicks. I guess I think this was the first game to go on the GameCube from, in the PS2 for Batman. For that, it's a good game, but it's dated. It's seriously dated. Compared to Arkham Asylum and almost any of the other Batman games, it's not quite as good, but it's still fun. It's still fun. It has a fun factor. Moving on. Like I said, it's hard to compare any Batman game without talking about Arkham Asylum. Now, here's a real gem that I didn't think was good. I got it for $3 for the buy 2, get 1 free. Teen Titans. I love Teen Titans. Not only the comic, but also the show. The show has a special place in my heart. I got this game thinking it was going to be absolute shit for 2-year-olds. This was really fun. I enjoyed this. It was a bit repetitive. The story was fun. The final battle, who was really the bad guy in the game, was just a hilarious ending. And it felt a lot like the old Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle games. You know, the one for the arcade that's really good, unlike the other sucky ones that have been ported. This was actually pretty fun. This would be a million times better with 4 people, though. The combo system's nice, too. It's a surprising gem. If you have an extra $3, I actually recommend picking it up. It'll hold you over. It's a really quick game, though. It'll take you, like, actually 3 hours to beat. Here's some gems. X-Wing, Star Wars X-Wing Rogue Squadron, Rogue Leader. That's a lot to say. Not as quite as good as the other game, but it really perfected on a lot of the controls. I think the other game had better levels, but this has some pretty good levels. It also has one of the best indoor levels on there without going into TIE Fighter and X-Wing. So this is a really good game. Definitely a good game to pick up for the GameCube. Nice. And then we have Star Wars Rebel Strike Rogue Squadron 3. Not as good as the other one. It has some redeeming values, but I was actually very disappointed by this. Moving on. We got a few games left for the GameCube. This is the last pile. I'm going to have to break this up into a third part. Metroid Prime. My favorite Metroid game. Great game overall. It has stain on it. There. Great Metroid game overall. I love the gameplay. I love the story. I thought it was a great transition over onto the GameCube. I really like this a lot. My favorite Metroid game. But granted, I've only played about 4 of them. Which brings me to Metroid Prime 2 Echoes. The new Metroid game is coming out, the other M, and in preparation for the new Metroid game I picked up this, I'm going to pick up Corruption, and I'm going to play them with my buddy, because my buddy's a huge Metroid fan. This is the only game that I played, and I got frustrated with, and I didn't continue playing. I actually sold it because I was so pissed off. There's a few things going on in my life that really affected me with the game. It wasn't the game's fault. Prom was coming up, and two of my friends, one of them, she started going out with a guy that I didn't approve, and she learned the hard way that he wasn't a good guy. And the second thing is one of my other friends was causing some trouble, and that was pissing me off. So I was just so pissed off I took it off on Xbox. It's a fun game. It's not as good as the first one, though. We're replaying it right now. We're about halfway through. So we'll put that down there. I can't really formulate a full opinion of it until I've done it. 007 Nightfire. This is the James Bond game that I'm currently playing. Like I said, I bought a lot of James Bond games to prep for the new one, for the new GoldenEye. I'm up to the second to last level, which is pissing me the fuck off. An okay first-person shooter. It took me a bit to get used to the game controls. I had to go to a different game control setting. It's short. That's my main problem. This is actually pretty short. And Pierce Brosnan actually does not do the voice. It says all new story featuring Pierce Brosnan as James Bond, but it doesn't give him his voice. It's an okay game from what I